If you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, if you're in any form of social media and you're pretty good at it, okay, if you're pretty good at the social media thing, then is there a risk to your company? Or if you run a company and you've got some rising social media stars within your midst, does that social media stardom add value to your company? Or do you run the risk of these people becoming mavericks and going into competition with you one day because they've developed this great following and they've stolen basically some of your brand identity? And I think that's what a lot of companies are struggling to deal with at the moment. Louis Eksteen, the managing director of Twisted Toast, which is a digital agency. You draw our attention to this research out of the United States. What's the status quo right now, Louis?
Yeah, Bruce, this is a topic that's been bubbling around for a while now. In fact, on the South African sort of tech blog Meme Burn, there's a guy called Mike Stopford that first raised the topic about what you should do when your personal and corporate brands collide. And now, just a couple of days ago, the Wall Street Journal wrote a really good piece, a really, really good, insightful piece entitled "Your Employee is an Online Celebrity. Now what do you do?" So basically, you know, with the rise of new media forms like social media, everybody can create their own brand online, really. You know, in the past it was journalists who had names for being able to contribute insightful stories and articles and evoke debate and share their knowledge. And today, everybody is in that position. So that puts the company in an awkward place because on the one hand, it could be great for the company. You know, there's a guy called David Graham who works at Deloitte in South Africa, and he's very, very well known in the digital space for sharing amazing content. He uses Twitter, he uses LinkedIn, but he works in the sort of space as a digital channels executive. And then there's Michael Jordan, who's the chief executive of FNB, and he has created a humongously big brand for himself, but also as the chief executive of FNB, and he tweets in his personal capacity, but you can't really distinguish between, you know, the personal brand and the company brand for a chief executive. So a lot of companies are grappling with this because it's a bit of a conundrum. Suppose this individual, you know, creates a prestigious brand for himself and the company sort of comes along for the ride, but the next day, you know, Absar grabs them and they, you know, sort of leave you and the intellectual capital that they've used from you as a company, and they might go somewhere else. So it really is a conundrum.
While we've been speaking, David Graham, SA, has just got another follower. I've just followed him. I want to see whether what you say is true or not. But there's certain people you expect to be active in this digital space. Like David Graham, he's the head of digital channels, so he's got to be active there. Michael Jordan uses it as a very effective public relations tool. But if you've got somebody in the lower ranks of a company who's very effective, who's very good at drawing business into the company because they're seen to be a thought leader in their particular space, is that where companies are maybe more vulnerable? Because the chief executive will go and the chief executive will go as a matter of course, but you want to grow your talent, retain your best talent internally, not get them to build a profile off your back.
Yeah, in the past, companies were probably not aware of sort of lower level employees, sort of the sales force and people like that, or in law firms, the sort of more junior lawyers or whatever. Companies were probably not aware how these people built their personal brands. But today, it's all in the open. So at the same time that this is happening, there's also a major shift in what is private and what is no longer private, or what is seen as private or not. You know, so what companies can do to sort of try and make sure that everything that the employees do are in both their as well as the company's benefit, to have a policy. You know, they could say that this is the kind of attitudes that we would like to see when you engage on your
legally, who owns the employee's personal digital profile?
I really don't know, but I could guess. I could guess that during work time, in other words, if the contract says you start at 9 and you end at 5, and you've got a lunch break between 1 and 2, during work time, the company owns your intellectual property.
But when you leave, who takes your 50,000 followers if you're the Mr. Deloitte, for example?
Well, clearly, if you did it completely and totally in your own name, you take it yourself with you. And that is another conundrum. Some companies co-brand. In other words, theoretically, David Graham could be sort of
Deloitte David, yeah.
Correct.
But he's not.
So there is a trend towards that, but that sort of depersonalizes it again, you know. So there are no easy answers to this, and I think that as access to media creation platforms grow, because clearly it is going to grow for everybody, this is just going to become a bigger issue. And what's also interesting is that sort of we're talking about executives are sort of, let's say, similar to us, our age group and all that, so we've got a certain view. But certainly the Generation Y, the next guys that are coming through, the millennials, they just take this for granted that they can do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, on their own social.
They need to learn some discipline, Louis. Oh, look, half the company just left. Louis Eksteen, Managing Director of Twisted Toast Digital. Thanks for your insights tonight.